كتاب الله دستوري وخير الخلق أسوتنا.
Okay.
Tamam, bu kadar yeter.
Çok teşekkür ediyorum. Ne var ne yok. Nihayet Türkiye'deyim. I don't know anything else. Don't ask. Elhamdülillahi Rabbil alemin ve salatu ve selam.
Başka bir soru.
وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين. اللهم اجعلنا منهم ومن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمين يا رب العالمين. ثم أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إنا فتحنا لك فتحا مبينا. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. واللهم ثبتنا عند الموت بلا إله إلا الله. آمين يا رب العالمين. I'd like to start by first of all expressing my
teşekkürlerimi sunmak istiyorum. Bu kadar yani bu kadar büyük bir ilgi ve özellikle burada çalışan gece gündüz burada çalışan gönüllüler için doğru düzgün uyku yüzü görmeyen insanlara çok teşekkür etmek istiyorum. Yani çok büyük bir alkış istiyorum onlar için. Gerçekten bunu mümkün kıldılar. Bugün burada toplanmamızı. Daha yeni Londra'dan geldim. Müşfik diye bir arkadaşım vardı, zaten bahsedildi. Kendisi bana söyledi, Türkiye'ye gelmek ister misin? Ben de okey dedim. Yani tabii ki. Buradaki bütün ilginin, bütün emeğin, bütün özverinin farkındayım. 3 gün içerisinde yapılan, yani gece gündüz bir mesajla başlayan bir zincirleme reaksiyon sonucunda burada toplandık. Gerçekten çok hızlı gerçekleşti her şey ve Türkiye'deyim ilk kez ve inşallah bundan sonra tekrar geliyor olacağım Türkiye'ye.
So, and since you've been listening to introductory comments for about an hour now, you're all going to stand up and get some blood flowing. Let's go, stand up. Stand up. Stretch out a little bit, don't hit anyone. Okay, good. It's good for you. All right, good. Have a seat. Have a seat. Okay. So, session 1 is a lesson in history. Session 2 is going to be analyzing that history. So when I walk you through the history, we won't analyze anything. I just want you to know what happened. And then session 3 will be the Quran. That will be the third part. Okay, so I'm hoping to get all three of those done. One more announcement that I want to make before I continue. I will speak to you for about 40-45 minutes, and then I'm going to give a 10-minute break. That is a break for you, but that's not a break for me. So when I have a break, I'm going to walk through here and try to talk to people. Don't come up, relax. Don't take a selfie. Learn Photoshop, okay? And so, I would love to, it's not going to be on the mic, I'll ask them to turn the mic off, I'll walk through the sister's side first, whatever questions and comments I can get, I will note them down, because my future talks are affected by what you share with me. Same thing on the other side, the next break is going to be for the gentlemen. I'll also come upstairs and come out at one of the breaks if I can. And I'll try to stay here as long as possible and meet as many of you as possible, inshallah ta'ala. And look, selfies are okay, but I really would love to get your salams, to make dua for you, you make dua for me, and that we get to share some good things with each other, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so that's a little bit of the announcement. Now let's begin our history lesson. I think many of you in the audience here are familiar with the life of our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'll give you a brief, synopsis until we get to the summary, the episode that I want to focus on. Our Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam delivered the message of the Quran for well over a decade in Mecca. And in that time, there is no physical violence and there is no ayat of jihad or qital, there is no fighting on behalf of the Muslims at all. The only thing they're calling for is justice, and the only thing they're reminding their society of is the oneness of God. That's it. That's essentially the call of 2/3 of the Quran, over 60% of the Quran. But of course, the people of Makkah became violent and eventually came to a point where they were not only torturing Muslims, they were now ready to expel the Prophet ﷺ and take him out of his home and even try to execute him. Now the Muslims are in Medina. And in Medina, there are two major conflicts. Of course, the first one is the Battle of Badr, and the next one is the Battle of, anyone know? It's okay, you can speak. What's the battle? Badr and Uhud. Very good. In Badr, we had a victory. In Uhud, it was actually pretty difficult. We lost 70 of the greatest companions in the Battle of Uhud. It was kind of a loss. And because of Uhud, the people of Makkah were now encouraged. They felt because they gave us a lot of damage, maybe they can finish the Muslims off. And so they gathered as many forces as they could, as many other tribes as they could, because the actual war, the actual conflict is between the people of Makkah and the Prophet ﷺ, you can say the people of Medina. That's the actual conflict. But the people of Makkah said, we are not enough to crush the Muslims. We need more help. So they went to all the other neutral tribes and said, listen, there are two reasons you should join us. One reason is they are already injured. If we beat them and destroy the city of Medina, you can loot the entire city with us, we will get rich together. That's the first reason. The second reason is if you don't do this, Islam is spreading. And right now they are a problem for Makkah, but pretty soon they will be a problem for you. So before Islam becomes a problem for you, why don't you join us and let's finish them off once and for all. That was the call made by Makkah. And so they gathered as many of the groups as they could to try to finish the problem of Islam once and for all. This parties, all these groups coming together, this is called Al-Ahzab, the groups. There's a surah by that name in the Quran, Surah Al-Ahzab, discussing this problem. These groups now came in, some argue, about 18,000 of them. Between 10 and 18,000. This is more than the population of Muslims inside Medina, including men, women, and children. So the number of soldiers coming is more than the civilian population. Can you imagine the kind of death that they are going to bring? The only thing that kept them away is the suggestion of Salman al-Farisi, who had only become Muslim a few weeks before this happened. And he said, look, when we are outnumbered, what we do is we dig a giant hole so the enemy can't come in. We dig a trench. And so in 6 days, can you imagine, in 6 days, the entire population of Medina, men, women, children, old, young, everybody started digging a giant hole in front of the city of Medina between the two mountains so they could create an obstacle for the enemy not to be able to come in. So their horses would go down in the ditch, but they can't get up because there's a mound of dirt in front. They created this defense of the city. But the city on sides is the mountain. You can't bring the horses and camels and warriors from the mountains. It's too difficult. You have to come all around from behind. But behind were the Jewish tribes from the other end, and they had a treaty with the Muslims. You can't even attack from behind. This is what's going on when the Battle of Ahzab takes place. Actually, there is no real battle. These armies came, they camped out outside of Medina. They knew they can't get inside, so they said, we'll just wait. Because soon enough, the people of Medina will run out of food, they'll run out of water, they'll have to come out, and we'll kill them. So they wait for 25 days. The army is outside, the Muslims are inside, stuck inside the city of Medina. They're so terrified that the Quran says, وَبَلَغَتِ الْقُلُوبُ الْحَنَاجِرِ. Hearts were beating in the throats, like that. That's what was happening inside Medina. But in those 25 days, what did Allah do? By the end of it, Allah started sending what He calls رِيحًا وَجُنُودًا لَمْ تَرَوْهَا. He starts sending winds, tornadoes, and the sand starts kicking up, and they're cooking their food, and the pot tips over, and the tent is on fire, and the horses are running away, and the army's having a hard time staying in the desert waiting. They can't stay there anymore. Because even the army that's outside, ready to kill the Muslims, they are also running out of supplies. And so one by one, they start leaving. They start going back. And alhamdulillah, in 25 days' time, the city of Medina is safe again. Okay, now, almost 11 months later. So 11 months ago, Muslims were almost completely killed. Every man, woman, and child was almost completely killed. Genocide. 11 months later, the Prophet ﷺ gets on the minbar and he makes an announcement that he saw a dream. يعني رأى رؤيا, he saw a dream. And in his dream, he's doing tawaf of the Kaaba. And he is shaving the head. And he's slaughtering an animal. When do you do that? When do you do tawaf and shave the head and slaughter the animal, Hajj or Umrah? That's when you do that. So, and when a prophet sees a dream, what does it mean? It means revelation, which means it's from Allah. It's not just some nightmare. It's not just something in your imagination. It is from Allah. So when the prophet sees his dream, 1,400 Muslims say, we will go with you. 1,400 Muslims. How many months later? What did I say? How many months later? 11 months later. 11 months ago, the people of Makkah came all the way to Medina to kill all of us. 11 months later, the Prophet says, let's put ihram on, no weapons, and let's go make Hajj in their house. Let's go do Umrah in Makkah. Those people are thirsty for your blood. They came all the way here to kill you, and now you're going to go into the lion's mouth? And how many people immediately agreed, let's do it? 1,400, some narrations. 1,400 people immediately agreed. Now this is also important history to understand. Our Prophet ﷺ has been in war with the people of Makkah for now 6 years. It's been 6 years back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And so in war, you have to have a lot of intelligence. You have to gather intelligence from the enemy. You have to have spies with them, and they have spies against you. So every time the Prophet would leave, ﷺ, they would have spies of Makkah in Medina. They would send a report. He's heading south. He's heading north. So that the people of Makkah could attack. And the Prophet knew that, ﷺ. So every time he wanted to go east, he would leave from the south. So that the spies would say he went which way? South. And he would do a long turn and then go east. And if he had to go north, he'd leave from the west or the east, somewhere else. So the false report would go to Makkah, and that's when he could make a big turn and then go the direction he's actually going, so he could keep throwing them off. This was the kind of intelligence warfare that was happening between Makkah and Medina. But now he saw a dream that he's doing what? Hajj or Umrah. And when he saw this dream, instead of going a different direction, he goes straight towards Makkah. For the first time in 6 years, he left in the exact direction where he intended to go. And he left in one of the sacred months. This is a month, when you leave in this month, when you journey in one of these 4 months, then you're not supposed to fight. So the Prophet ﷺ is doing 2 things. He's number 1, going without weapons. Number 2, he's heading directly towards Makkah. And number 3, he's heading at a time when you declare you're not going to fight. For Makkah, this is perfect. We can kill them, they don't even have defense. And they're coming to us, we can solve this problem now. The Prophet ﷺ decides that he's going to send one of his spies, Busr, one of the Muslims. He's not from Aus and Khazraj, he's not from Medina, and he's not from Makkah. And he has not been in any other battle before. This is one of the companions of the Prophet ﷺ. He tells him, go quickly to Makkah and find out what they're doing. Get some intelligence for me, understand what they're doing. He goes to Makkah. He sees that they're all sharpening their weapons. They're preparing their armor. Everybody on the street is talking about killing the Muslims because the news has already got there. When 1,400 people travel, the news spreads. It's not one person going on a journey, it's a large group of people. So the word spread, and they're getting ready to kill. He came back and said, they're going to kill all of you. They've already gathered every force they can. And Ahabish, they got their best. You know, nowadays you have in the military, you have sniper rifles and sniper shooters, snipers, right? Back in the day, you had the Ahabish. You had the people who throw the spears at a long distance. the expert spear throwers. They've gathered the best of them too, and they're coming for you. So when he goes, Muslim goes to Mecca, he has to quickly come back and get to the Prophet and let him know that we shouldn't do this. This is a bad idea. But by the time he comes back, the Prophet ﷺ is already 60% done with the journey. They're already almost in Mecca. They're in a place called Asqan, all the way up. And that's when Musa comes and says, they're coming to kill you, and all of us. What are we going to do? And so this is where our story begins. Our story begins in this field of Asqan, where now the Prophet knows that the Quraysh are coming again. How long ago did they come before? 11 months ago. Now they're coming again. And this time they have the best opportunity to kill us. So I want to share with you some things our Prophet did, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he got this news. Musa comes to him and tells him they're coming, and he makes an announcement. He says, Ya wayha Quraysh, laqad akalathum al-harb. How horrible are Quraysh. War has eaten up their minds. It has consumed them. ماذا عليهم لو خلوا بيني وبين سائر العرب. What is wrong with them? Why don't they just leave me alone and let me deal with all the other Arabs? They are my own people. Why are my own people trying to kill me? Let somebody else try to kill me. What's their problem? فَإِنْهُمْ أَصَابُونِي كَالَّذِي أَرَادُوا. If anybody else kills me, they get what they want anyway. وَإِنْ أَظْهَرَنِي اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِمْ دَخَلُوا فِي الْإِسْلَامِ وَافِرِينَ. And he says, forget about Islam, this is bad economics for Makkah. Because if they do become Muslim, they will come to perform what? Hajj, Umrah. And when they perform Hajj and Umrah, they slaughter the animals. And when they slaughter the animals, where does all the meat and all the skin, where does it go? It goes to the people of Makkah. It doesn't go anywhere else. You don't have refrigerated airplanes back then that you can slaughter the meat and take it back to Medina. You can't. It'll go bad. All of it is distributed where? In Makkah. So the Prophet is saying this, they don't even understand that even them accepting Islam is good for them economically. They don't even get that. So now, he says, فَمَا تَظُنُّ قُرَيْشٍ. What does Quraysh think? The Prophet is speaking publicly now. فَوَاللَّهِ لَا أَزَالُ أُجَاهِدُ عَلَى الَّذِي بَعَثَنِي اللَّهُ بِهِ حَتَّى يُظْهِرَهُ اللَّهُ أَوْ تَنْفَرِدْ هَذِهِ السَّادِفَةِ. He says, I swear by Allah, Wallah, I will keep fighting to what the mission for the mission Allah gave me until this is sliced off. Until either Allah gives me victory or this is sliced off. When the Sahaba hear this, when the companions hear this, they're like, we're ready for war. Even though, did they come for war or no? Did they come out to fight? No. They came for what intention? Hajj, Umrah, that's why they came. But when the Prophet says, I will keep fighting until even my neck is sliced, now the Sahaba are thinking, I think we're going to have to fight. But then the Prophet gathers all of them. How many of them? You tell me, you have to stay awake. By the way, if you can make the lights brighter in here, yes, I got it, 1400, very good, very proud, very proud. If you can make the lights brighter in here, they're extremely romantic right now. So you can just turn them up, inshallah, okay. Yes, excellent, okay. Somebody's listening, okay. Okay. This is pretty awesome. The Prophet gathers the companions, and he says to them, Ashiru ayyuhan nas alayya. You tell me, people tell me your opinion. Ataramma an amila ila iyalihim wa dharari ha'ula alladhina yuriduna an yasudduna 'ala al-bayt fa in ya'tuna kana Allahu 'azza wa jalla qad qata'a 'aynan min al-mushrikeen. The Prophet ﷺ says, I give you two options. Maybe we can fight the Quraysh. Let's do it. Even if we don't have the weapons, we can do it. And we will do serious damage to them. Allah has promised that He will give them major damage. He won't kill them all, but Allah will give us enough victory that we will damage them. Or, I have another option for you. Maybe we can fight some of the other side tribes, because we're already here. Let's just beat up on some of the smaller enemies and take their stuff and go back. You remember 11 months ago, the Quraysh did not come alone. They came with a lot of different groups, and those were all in the neighborhood. So the Prophet says, either we fight with Quraysh, which is a tough war, or we can do a small war and just go back. We can beat them quickly and go back. But what most people don't realize is that the Prophet ﷺ was testing the Muslims. That was a psychological test. What do you think? What should we do? Now if you have 1,400 and among them young men who say, we didn't get to go to Badr, we didn't get to go to Uhud, and Ahzab wasn't really a fight. Yeah, let's do it. Fi sabilillah. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq got up. When Abu Bakr speaks, everybody becomes what? Everybody's quiet. Abu Bakr says the following, Ya Rasulullah, kharajta amidan li hadha al-bayt. Messenger of Allah, I know, you actually left with the intention for Umrah. You came for the house. Because he left in which month? A sacred month. You're not supposed to fight in that month. And the Prophet knows that. And Abu Bakr knows the Prophet ﷺ is doing a test. So he says, Ya Rasulullah, before these young men get excited, you came out to do Umrah. خرجت عاملا لهذا البيت. And then he says, لا تريد قتل أحد. Actually, you don't want to kill anyone. He tells the Prophet ﷺ, I know what this test is. You don't actually want to kill anyone. ولا حرب أحد. And actually, you don't want to fight war with anybody. فمن صدنا عنه فتوجه له فمن صدنا عنه قاتلناه. So let's just go towards Allah's house, meaning go towards Makkah. If somebody tries to fight us and stop us, then we'll fight them. But we don't have the intention of fighting, we have peaceful intention. So let's just keep going. The Prophet ﷺ says, Umbu bismillah. Umbu bismillah. He says, Umbu ala bismillah. Move forward in the name of Allah. Meaning, Abu Bakr spoke, and by the way, there are some young men in the audience, they're like, we're going to fight. And then Abu Bakr says, actually, we're not going to fight. Oh, okay, all right. I guess we're not going to fight. He calmed the youth down. Calm them down. And then the Prophet said, let's move forward. But they can't move forward because who's coming? Quraysh is coming. And by the way, they're coming with Khalid ibn Walid. He's not Muslim yet. And Khalid ibn Walid is very strategic because he is the reason we lost which battle? Uhud. And that's the same guy coming now. And now he's headed our way and we're already 60% close to them. The Prophet makes an announcement, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Who knows another way that, he says, إِنَّ عُيُونَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ الْآنَ عَلَى ضَجْنَانٍ فَأَيُّكُمْ يَعْرِفُ طَرِيقَ ذَاتِ الْحَنْظَلِ. He says, they're already coming very, very close. The enemies are very close. Does anybody know a side road that we can use to go to Makkah? 1,400 people, nobody knew a side road. One man raised his hand. I know a way. But it's not for human beings. Not even animals. But we can try it. We can try it. 1,400 people is not the only thing. There are also camels and sheep, animals that they're going to slaughter for Hajj. There's also supplies. All of this stuff is now going to go through this valley. And so, when they get to this valley, the reason people don't travel there is because it's made up of sharp rocks, very narrow. So when you walk, it cuts you. Okay? And then it's also burnt rock, so it melts your shoes. And so they're going, and there's nothing that grows there. There's no water. That's why there are no animals. There's no water there. There's nothing that can survive there. And now they have to go through this valley. So the Prophet ﷺ says, he puts one of the Muslims in front, and he basically tells him, هَلْ مِنْ رَجُلٍ يَنْزِلْ فَيَسْعَى بَيْنَ يَدَيْ الرِّكَابِ. Somebody has to go ahead and clear the bushes so we can walk. So one of them volunteers, and he goes and he starts clearing the bushes until his ihram up to his leg is completely red with blood. And so he tells him, you need to go back. I need another volunteer. And so one after the other, the Sahaba volunteered to clear the road so that they could get through this path. And pretty much by the time they get there, everybody is scraped with blood. This is how they walk an entire day. An entire day's journey with all of their animals and all of their supplies. And when they do this, by the way, this was the first Hajj. They didn't get to, but this was the first Hajj. The reason you and I get to see the Kaaba today is because those people went through that valley. Every time you and I go to Tawaf, you have to remind yourself we didn't have to bleed like they did. They did that. They paid for us. We get to go and we complain, oh my God, I have 2 stops and the passport line is so long. There's so much traffic in Makkah. I'm hungry. And then we see the Kaaba, and then all of it disappears, and then we complain, oh my God, the hotel is so far away. What hotel did these people have? What rest stop did they have? You know, where did they stop over and get some water? They have nothing. And they're going, and they're risking their lives going there. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he lets them, they pass through this, and as they go, Rasul ﷺ reaches a field, an open field. And in that field there's a bent tree. A bend is called a hadab. And that's why this field is called Hudaybiyah. That's what this field is called. And there's a well there. It's an old well, completely dry. So these people get to this field, and when they get there, the Prophet's camel sits down. It stops moving. Now they can't stop here because they need drink, they need food. They have to keep going because remember, this is desert. And if that many people, animals are going to start dying. If you don't feed them, they're going to start dying. So when the Prophet's camel sat down, people started saying, and by the way, the Prophet's camels, he had names for them. So her name was Qaswa. So people said, Khala'at al-Qaswa, Khala'at al-Qaswa. Qaswa has transmission problems. Qaswa is having engine failure. Qaswa is not moving forward. It's stuck here. And people started complaining. And what did the Prophet say? He said, Ma khala'at al-Qaswa. Qaswa is not having transmission problems. Qaswa did not go bad. You know sometimes animals go crazy and they don't do what you want them to do? That's not the case. Qaswa is fine, but he says, وَمَا ذَاكَ لَهَا بِخُلُقْ وَلَكِنْ حَبَسَهَا حَابِسُ الْفِيلِ. One of the most beautiful sayings of the Prophet ﷺ. He says, Qaswa doesn't behave this way, but the one who stopped the elephant stopped her. Listen to what the Prophet said. The one who stopped the elephant stopped Qaswa. Are there any elephants with the Prophet? No. What elephant is he talking about? Abraham. A long time ago, somebody came to destroy the Kaaba, but Allah protected the Kaaba. The entire mission of the Prophet ﷺ is to protect the original purpose of the Kaaba. The same reason Allah stopped the elephant is the same reason. You done your photo? You done? It's distracting. Sorry. So the thing is, I've been giving lectures for a long time. When something like this happens, 2,000 faces. Do that. So I'm going to let him finish so you can get back. What was I talking about? I forgot. Which elephant were we discussing? Which animal? I gave it away. Elephant. Okay. So the Prophet ﷺ is basically telling them we are on the same mission. Just like Allah protected the Kaaba before, He's going to protect the Kaaba through us. Because the Kaaba is not just a building. It's not just a building. It's the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, to worship just one Allah, to just worship one God. And they're on that same exact mission. With the elephant, Allah protected the building of the Kaaba. With the camel, Allah will protect the purpose of the Kaaba. So now the camel stops. And they don't know what to do. Because there's a lot of them. كُنَّا مَعَ النَّبِي صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ 14 We were with the Prophet 1,400 in number. فَنَزَحْنَا فَلَمْ نَتْرُكْ فِيهَا قَطْرًا وَالْحُدَيْبِيَّةِ بِئْرٌ فَنَزَحْنَاهَا فَلَمْ نَتْرُكْ فِيهَا قَطْرًا. And we were at this well, and we go all the way down to the well, and we couldn't find a single drop. فَبَلَغَ ذَلِكَ النَّبِي صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. This problem reached the Prophet ﷺ. فَأَتَاهَا. So he came to the well. جَلَسَ عَلَى شَفِيرِهَا. He sat at the edge of the well. ثُمَّ دَعَى بِإِنَاءٍ مِّن مَاءٍ فَتَوَضَّأَ. He asked for a small pitcher of water, and he made wudu. And when he gargled, he poured it into the well. The Prophet ﷺ poured the water into the well. ثُمَّ صَبَّهُ فِيهَا فَتَرَكْنَاهَا غَيْرَ بَعِيدٍ. We left the well alone for a few moments, not too long. ثُمَّ إِنَّهَا أَصْدَرَتْنَا مَا شِئْنَا. It started overflowing. As much as we wanted, we had from it. نَحْنُ وَرِكَابُنَا. We and our animals, including their animals that include camels. And camels, as you know, drink a lot. This well started overflowing and they all had their fill. Now they are basically
in Makkah. Hudaybiyah is almost practically inside Makkah. And Quraysh has a big problem. Quraysh have a contract. They never attack anyone where? Inside Makkah. If you come inside Makkah peacefully and you brought animals with you and you want to do tawaf, then they will not attack you. That's their contract. If they attack the Muslims now, all the other tribes will say, you can't do that. The only reason we don't attack you is because you never attack anyone who comes to Al-Bayt al-Haram, Al-Masjid al-Haram. If you don't agree to that contract, then they will be in trouble with all of the other tribes. So they can no longer attack the Muslims. They're stuck. Politically, they're stuck. So they come up with a new solution. They assign 80 men. أن 80 رجلا من أهل مكة هبطوا على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم من جبل التنعيم متسلحين. They get 80 assassins, 80 killers, to wrap up their faces and to attack the field of Hudaybiyah to try to deceive and kill the Prophet ﷺ and to cause chaos. Because if you have a bunch of people sitting, eating food, resting, and all of a sudden 80 people come and start killing people, there's going to be chaos and they're all going to run away. They're trying to disrupt the gathering of Muslims. And of course their faces were covered because they don't want them to know that this was sent by Makkah. They want it to be a covert operation, CIA. Okay, that's what they want. So that's why they covered their faces. Now, فَأَخَذَهُمْ سِلْمًا فَاسْتَحْيَاهُمْ. The Prophet ﷺ not only captured all of them, he disarmed all of them, captured them, arrested them, removed their clothes, so they got embarrassed. Oh, you're from Makkah, I know you. And then he sent them back home. We just let them go. And this is huge. The Sahaba, I want you to understand the psychology, not of the Prophet, but of the people next to the Prophet. These are Muslims that were almost killed by the enemy 1 year ago. They have gone to war with the people of Makkah 3 times already. Badr, Uhud, Ahzab. Now they have come with peaceful reasons. And they even then get attacked. They get attacked in Makkah when no one's ever attacked. That's what happens to them. They have the right to say, we should kill them, we should execute them, we should punish them, we should send a message. No, the Prophet lets them go, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he's calming his young men down. He's calming his people down. And so, when they send them back, Allah even revealed later on, هُوَ الَّذِي كَفَّ أَيْدِيَهُمْ عَنْكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ عَنْهُمْ بِبَطْنِ مَكَّةِ. Allah held their hands from getting to you, and He kept your hands from getting to them when you were right in the belly of Makkah. Okay. So now, you guys are with me so far? Okay. Now we know they can't attack us. And now we're in Hudaybiyah, but they won't let us in either. They're not letting us go. So what should we do? So a problem starts. Because Makkah is not alone. It has neighboring tribes. So you can think of Makkah as the center, and it has certain smaller tribes around it, and they are protection for Makkah also. And the people around Makkah are now saying, hey, what are the Muslims doing here? Didn't we just go last year to kill them? We need to deal with this problem. But the Quraysh are too proud, they don't want to deal with the Muslims. So the first group of people, first person from a next door tribe of Makkah is a tribe called Khuza'a. And I won't give you lots of names, I'll just give you one name. His name is Budayl. Okay, what's his name? Budayl. Budayl comes to Makkah. Actually, first he comes to the Prophet himself, and he says, إِنِّي تَرَكْتُ كَعْبَ بْنَ لُؤَيْ وَعَامِرِ بْنَ لُؤَيْ نزلوا أعداد مياه الحديبية ومعه عوذ البطافيل وهم يقاتلوك وصادوك عن البيت. Listen, he comes to Rasulullah ﷺ and he says, listen, the Quraysh, they are putting their best weapons on. And they are getting ready like the ancient warriors. And they are putting lion skin on. And they're even bringing their women and children with them. Why would the Quraysh bring women and children with them? That means they will not run from the battlefield. When they think about running, they're going to say, my women are killed, my children are here. And they'll keep fighting you until the death. They are going to kill you, Muhammad. You need to leave. That's what Budayl comes and tells him. And what does the Prophet say, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? إِنَّا لَمْ نَجِئْ لِقِتَالِ أَحَدٍ. We didn't come here to fight anybody. وَلَكِنَّا جِئْنَا مُعْتَمِرِينَ. We just came here to do what? Umrah. That's all we came here for. وَإِنَّ قُرَيْشًا قَدْ نَكَهَتْهُمُ الْحَرْبِ. War has overpowered the minds of the Quraysh. وَأَضَرَّتْ بِهِمْ. It is only doing them harm. فَإِنْ شَاءُوا مَادَتْهُمْ مُدَّةً. This is the Prophet's suggestion. If they want, I can give them a few hours. The Quraysh, I'll give them a few hours. وَيُخَلُّ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ النَّاسِ. They can leave Makkah for a few hours. They don't have to see me. I'll just go do tawaf, do umrah, and I'll come out. And they can have Makkah back. It's fine, it's no big deal. So he says, فَإِنْ أَفَرْ فَإِنْ شَاءُوا أَنْ يَدْخُلُوا فِي مَا دَخَلَ فِيهِ النَّاسِ فَعَلُوا. They can go wherever on the outside of the city, wherever people go. It's no big deal, no problem. وَإِلَّا فَقَدْ جَمُّوا. And if they don't want to do that, then they have become stubborn. وَإِنْهُمْ أَبَوْا. And if they refuse, فَوَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ لَأُقَاتِلَنَّهُمْ عَلَى أَمْرِ هَذَا حَتَّى تَنْفَلِدُ سَالِفَتِي أَوْ لَيَنْفِذَنَّ اللَّهُ أَمْرَهُ. He says, and if they don't listen, then I will fight them until this is cut. He said that before too, right? Now he's saying it to the ambassador from Khuzara. You go tell them, I will fight them until this is cut, or Allah will give me victory. You let them know. We're not scared. And so he goes back. But then he goes back to Quraysh. And he says, سَأُبَلِّغُهُ مَا تَقُولُ. He tells the Prophet, I'll go tell them what you said. I'll be your ambassador, I'll go tell them. فانطلق حتى أتى قريشا. He came back until he came to Quraysh. إنا قد جئناكم من هذا الرجل وسمعناه يقول قولا فإن شئتم أن نعرضه عليكم فعلنا. Interesting. He comes to Quraysh and said, listen, those people, they're saying some things. If you want, I can tell you. If you don't want, it's okay. Because they are not a big deal. Quraysh is the big deal. This is a small tribe, so they have to act small. So they say, if you want to hear what they said, we can tell you. If not, it's okay. And so what did they say? قَالَ سُفَهَاؤُهُمْ لَا حَاجَةَ لَنَا أَن تُخْبِرَنَا بِشَيْءٍ. We don't need you to tell us anything. Get lost. We don't want to hear it. But some of them said, هَاتِ مَا سَمِعْتَهُ يَقُولُ. No. Let him say something. So even within the politics of Quraysh, some people are saying, who cares? We'll just go kill him. We'll kill everyone. And others say, no, let's listen. So he tells them, فَحَدَّثَهُمْ بِمَا قَالَهُ النَّبِي. And he says, and they laugh. He's going to fight us? He wants us to leave and he's going to do Umrah? Excuse me? And so what did he say? What did the tribe leader of Khuzara say? He says, وَاللَّهِ لَمْ يَأْتِ لِلْقِتَالِ بَلْ لِزِيَارَةِ الْبَيْتِ وَتَكْرِيمِهِ. He said, look, he didn't come here to fight. I saw the animals, I saw what they're wearing, they are not here to fight. If you fight them, we are not with you. Khuza'ah said, if you fight them, we are not with you. Makkah has lots of different tribes around them. They just lost one of them. Khuza'ah is gone. And so now, the next tribe, Ta'if. Is Ta'if a small city or a big city? Ta'if is a big city. Ta'if is an important city, but they're also neighbors of Makkah. Ta'if says, this is a problem. I'll go talk to the Prophet. So Urwa, he came. Urwa is the leader of Ta'if. Ay Muhammad, ara'ayta in istaqsadta amra qawmik? He comes and he starts insulting the Prophet. He says, have you ever seen anyone who tries to attack and get rid of his own people? What kind of man are you? You are Quraysh and they're Quraysh and you come and hurt them? He starts giving the Prophet a lecture. هَلْ سَمِعْتَ بِأَحَدٍ مِّنَ الْعَرَبِ اجْتَاحَ أَهْلَهُ قَبْلَكَ. Have you ever heard anyone harming their own people of the Arabs before you? What kind of Arab are you? And so and then he says, وَإِن تَكُنِ الْأُخْرَى فَإِنِّي لَأَرَى وُجُوهًا وَإِنِّي لَأَرَى أُشْهَابًا مِّنَ النَّاسِ خَلِيقًا أَنْ يَفِرُّوا وَيَدْعُوكَ. Oh man, he said something bad. Listen to this carefully. He comes to the Prophet. Who's next to the Prophet? Who are the people next to the Prophet? Abu Bakr Siddiq, Umar, Uthman,
He has Muhajirun with him, he has Ansar with him, he has Salman al-Farisi with him, he has Suhaib al-Rumi with him. He has all these people from the same place or different places? Different places, same tribe or different tribes? Different tribes. He says, look, the Quraysh are one tribe. When I come here to talk to you, I see all these different colors and different faces. What is this, a bus station? These people, if the Quraysh come and fight you, they are one tribe. They will attack you. And if they attack you, these people are going to disappear because they're not even one tribe. In his mind, nothing can unite people other than what? Tribe. He doesn't understand that these people are united by something way thicker than blood. They are united by La ilaha illallah. They're united by Muhammadur Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He doesn't know. He has no idea how that works. So he says, these people, they're going to fight for you? Impossible. That's what he says. And so, he heard a really bad word. I can't translate it. One of the Sahaba cursed. Very bad word. Why you... Like, it's really bad. When I first read it, I didn't know the vocabulary. Because I have not read this vocabulary in any part of Quran or Hadith or anywhere. So I go to the dictionary. What did he say? Seriously? And by the way, Urwa was a governor of Taif. He's a big deal. And he was just talking like a governor. And somebody from behind cursed him really bad. And he said, Man qal? Who dare say this? It was Abu Bakr. What? Nice, soft, kind, gentle Abu Bakr? Do you remember a few hours ago when the Prophet ﷺ said, let's fight? Who calmed everybody down? Abu Bakr. And the same Abu Bakr is now saying words nobody has ever heard him talk like this ever before. And there's a whole shock. And so, أَنَحْنُ نَفِرُّ عَنْهُ وَنَدَعُهُ. And Abu Bakr, after cursing him, says, oh, you think we're going to run? You think we are going to run? And when he says this, and he said, Abu Bakr, he says, أَمَا وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ لَوْلَا يَدٌ كَانَتْ لَكَ عِنْدِي لَمْ أَجْزِكَ بِهَا لَأَجَبْتُكَ. Urwa says, you're lucky I owe you money. And by the way, Urwa is a governor, right? So he's not going to borrow $5. You understand? It's going to be a big amount of money. And he says, if I didn't owe you money, I would have answered you. But consider the debt settled. I'm not going to pay you back anymore because of this curse. So now, Urwa goes back to his companions. Urwa is obviously, once he got cursed by Abu Bakr, he's like, there's no negotiation here, I'm just going to go back. So he talks to Quraysh. And he says, قَالَ أَيْ قَوْمُ وَاللَّهِ. He said, people, I swear to God, لَقَدْ وَفَدْتُ عَلَى الْمُلُوكِ. I have been an ambassador for kings. I have gone to, and he said, وَفَدْتُ عَلَى قَيْصَرْ وَكِسْرَى وَالنَّجَاشِي. I have been an ambassador to the Abyssinian king, the Roman king, the Persian king. I have served in these castles. I have gone and met with these dignitaries. Wallahi, in ra'aytu malikan qattu. I have never ever in my life seen any king يُعَذِّبُهُ أَصْحَابُهُ مَا يُعَذِّبُ أَصْحَابُ مُحَمَّدٍ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ مُحَمَّدًا. He says, I have never seen any people who make a big deal out of their king the way his companions make a big deal out of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I have never seen it. And then he says, Wallahi in tanakhama nukhama illa waqa'at fi kaffi rajulin minhum. Even if he was to spit, poop, just like that, they'll catch it in their hand. If he was to gargle his mouth and spit it out, they will fight to catch the water and wash from it. When he washes his hands, they run and get the drops and wash themselves with it. They are obsessed with him. And then he says at the end, and when he says, وَإِذَا تَكَلَّمَ خَفَضُوا أَصْوَاتَهُمْ عِنْدَهُ. Whenever he speaks, their voices become low. They get humble around him. وَمَا يُحِبُّونَ إِلَيْهِ النَّظَرِ. They don't even stare at him. They don't even make eye contact with him. تَعْظِيمًا لَهُ. Out of how great they think he is. They get nervous around him. They keep their eyes low when they deal with him. وَإِنَّهُ قَدْ عَرَضَ عَلَيْكُمْ خُطَّةَ رُشْدٍ فَاقْبَلُوهَا. And then he says at the end, this is the governor of Taif, telling Makkah, listen, he's got a good idea, take it. Just go outside, let him do Umrah, come back. They said, and he says, وَإِنِّي أَخَافُ أَلَّا تُنْصَرُوا عَلَيْهِ. He says, listen to what I'm saying, because if you don't listen to me, I don't think you can beat him. Oh my God. Now Taif is saying you cannot beat these 1,400 unarmed Muslims. Unarmed Muslims. You won't be able to beat him. And that's not the testimony of the Muslims. That's the testimony of the governor of Taif. أَتَى هَذَا الْبَيْتُ مُعَظِّمًا لَهُ مَعَ الْهَدِيَّةِ يَنْحَرْ وَيَنْصَرِفُ. Listen, he came to this house with good intentions. He's brought the animals. He's going to do his rituals and he's going to leave. لا تكلم بهذا يا أبا يعفور لو غيرك تكلم بهذا للمناه. Come on, governor of Taif, Quraysh said. You're talking like this too? If somebody else spoke like this, we would have slapped them. But you're a senior. You're such a good politician. You're talking like this? So he says, listen, before they said, he will never come here. He said, okay, just tell him he can come next year. Go back and tell him he can come next year. So now, they've lost Khuzara. They've also lost what? Taif is gone. Has there even a single sword been lifted yet? No. Not a single sword has been lifted. And the Quraysh is losing support even around themselves. And so, the Muslims, they decide maybe the negotiation is taking too long, we should send somebody. So every time somebody else came to us, but this time we decide to send somebody. So the Prophet ﷺ sent a man named Khuza'a, and he sent him on his own camel, another one of the Prophet's camels. So Khuza'a goes into Makkah from the Muslims. The people recognize the Prophet ﷺ's Porsche, his camel. So they drag him down and they start beating him up in the street. They start beating Khuza'a up in the street until somebody rescues him and lets him go back. Which means now the Prophet is not going to send anybody else, right? Actually, he will later on. He's going to give the suggestion, let's send Umar. Why is he going to send Umar? Because last time they sent someone, they got beat up. So why don't they try beating up who? Umar, so Umar should go. But we'll get to that later. In the meantime, there's one more tribe, Kanana. So it was Khuza'a, there was Taif, and one more city next to Makkah is what? Kanana. And Kanana is important. Actually, I forgot to tell you one more thing, really interesting. The guy's name is Urwa, right? The governor of Taif. This is a crazy part of the story. It's really amazing though. When the Arabs in the old times, when they used to negotiate, they used to sit knee touching knee across from each other. And the older one can actually grab the beard of the younger one when he wants to make a point. Listen to what I'm saying, like that. We don't negotiate like that, alhamdulillah. But that was a normal thing for them to do. Urwa was sitting next to the Prophet, knee to knee, and he notices the Prophet is not listening. So he tries to grab the Prophet's beard. Who is all around the Prophet? The Sahaba are all standing. They're sitting on the ground, the Sahaba are all standing. So as he tries to grab the Prophet's beard, the back of a sword comes and hits him on the head. And he says, keep your hand to yourself. And a few minutes later, he tries to grab the Prophet's beard again, and somebody hit him again. And he's the governor. And then he tries to grab the beard of the Prophet a third time, just because that's what they do as a culture. He hits him again and says, next time you won't have a hand left. And last time he was insulted by Abu Bakr, remember? He says, who dares? He looks back, it's his own nephew. It's his own nephew. He knows there's no negotiating with these people. Kanana is the next tribe. The Kanana people are interesting. They're very religious. They're mushrik, they're not Muslim, but they have a lot of respect for the Kaaba. They have a lot of respect for the Kaaba. And the Prophet ﷺ sees their tribe leader coming from a distance. His name is Huds. When Huds is coming, the Prophet ﷺ is such a genius. You know what he does? He tells the Sahaba, take all the animals. Why did they bring the animals? For what? Sacrifice. Take all the animals, put them in the front. So before he sees us, he sees what? The animals. And then stand on the side of the animals and say, Labbaik Allahumma labbaik, labbaik la sharika laka labbaik, loud, out loud. Just start doing talbiyah out loud. Why? Because the people of Kanana had a lot of respect for Hajj. So when he comes, before he even negotiates, his heart will be soft. These people didn't come to fight. They just came, look, all these animals, they just came for that reason. So when he did this, Huls comes from a distance and he stops. He didn't even come. He just stood at a distance and said, Subhanallah, ma yanbaghi li ha'ula an yusaddu. Oh my God, why are these people being stopped? I'm not going to negotiate with them. His whole point was go away. And he says, that's wrong, I'm not going to tell them. فَلَمَّا رَجَعَ إِلَى أَصْحَابِهِ قَالَ رَأَيْتُ الْبُدُنْ قَدْ قُلِّدَتْ وَأُشْرِبَتْ فَمَا أَرَى أَنْ يُصَدُّ عَنْ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ. He says, I went there, the animals are ready to be sacrificed, people are worshipping, they should not be stopped, let them go. Instead of being an ambassador for Quraysh, without even saying a word, he became an ambassador for the Muslims. He flipped around. And the Quraysh got angry, because they already lost too. So they said, Ijlis, فَإِنَّمَا أَنْتَ بِعَرَبِي لَا عِلْمَ لَكَ. Sit down. You're nothing but a Bedouin. You don't have any knowledge. Now Huls is upset. He says, the narration says, أَنَّ الْحُلْس غَضِبَ عِنْدَ ذَلِكَ. Huls got very upset. And so he says, يَا مَعْشَرَ قُرَيْشِ وَاللَّهِ مَا عَلَى هَذَا حَالَفْنَاكُمْ وَلَا عَلَى هَذَا عَاقَبْنَاكُمْ. We did not agree with you, Quraysh, for this. When somebody comes to Hajj, you let them go. We never agreed that you get to stop people from worshipping Allah or worshipping whatever religion they have at the Kaaba. We never agreed to that. And then he says, وَالَّذِي نَفْسُ حُلْسٍ بِيَدِهِ لَتَخُلُّنَّ بَيْنَ مُحَمَّدٍ وَبَيْنَ مَا جَاءَ لَهُ أَوْ لَأَنْفِرَنَّ بِأَحَابِيشٍ نَفْرَةَ رَجُلٍ وَاحِدٍ. He says, either you will let him go, or I will make sure not even one single tribe is left to support you. I will make sure every last person leaves the side of Quraysh. You will be completely isolated, I swear to it. I swear to God, that is what my mission will become. They say to him, Mah. Mah in Arabic means shut up. That's what that means. Now, you can use that at home, I guess. If you have an argument with your sister and you're like, Mah! And she says, what'd you say? And you say, I'm learning Arabic. So he says, go away. They sent Huls away. Now they lost Khuzama. They've lost Taif. They've lost Kanana. They've lost everybody. And they don't even have to, other tribes don't even have to come. Huls will go to all the others and say, forget Makkah. Forget about them. The Sahaba haven't done anything. They're just sitting in Hudaybiyah. The Prophet said, let's send Umar inside. And when they're about to send Umar, Umar says, I have a suggestion. When I go inside, they're going to try to kill me. And I will kill probably 20, 30 of them. But eventually they will kill me. I have a better idea. Why don't you send Uthman? Because Uthman is related to Abu Sufyan. And Abu Sufyan is the current president of Makkah. So if you go and you're family with the president, maybe they give you some VIP treatment. So I think it's better that you send who? Uthman. So they let go of Uthman. And the Prophet ﷺ told Uthman, when you go inside Makkah, make sure you talk to Abu Sufyan. And when you go, also visit the Muslims that are being tortured. Because there were Muslims in Makkah that were being held and were being tortured. Are you guys doing okay so far? I want to finish the history lesson in this session, even if it's a little bit long, and then come back and do a shorter analysis and then get to the Quran. Okay, so I do want to get you, get the entire scene in your minds, inshallah. So anyway, Uthman goes inside, they try to stop him, but then his uncle shows up and they sit down and talk, and he's not listening. His uncle says, no, there's no way you guys can come and do Hajj. Not going to happen. If anything, tell Muhammad he has to take everyone back and they can come back next year. And they're doing this negotiation and he's meeting with the prisoners and it's taking a very long time in these negotiations. While this is happening, the Muslims are waiting in Hudaybiyah. And I can tell you how this probably happened. They're sitting there, and one of them says, Uthman has been gone for 5 hours. That's a really long time. I hope he's okay. And the person in the next campfire says, I heard Uthman is not okay. I hope he didn't get killed. And 2 fires over, I heard Uthman got killed. Did you hear that? And then somebody else says to somebody, hey, have you heard that Uthman got killed? No, I heard some people saying it. And then you go and you go and you go and you say, everybody's saying Uthman got killed. I mean, everybody knows it now. And so this rumor spread that Uthman has been what? Killed. And then the rumor reaches the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when the rumor reaches the Prophet ﷺ, something really unique in Islamic history happens. That, it didn't happen before. The Prophet ﷺ actually calls the entire gathering. نادى منادى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم البيعة نزل الروح القدس وهو تحت الشجرة الصغرى. The Prophet made an announcement. Everybody come, hold my hand and take a promise. Hold my hand and take a promise. Jibreel came down and he's by the tree. You must come. All 1,400 gathered. And they're trying to hold the Prophet's hand, and this is back, and they make a promise with him. And later on they were asked, what is the promise? And some of them said, عَلَى الْمَوْتِ بَيَعْنَاهُ عَلَى الْمَوْتِ. We promise that we will die taking revenge for what they did to Uthman. Because killing an ambassador, even today in modern politics, killing an ambassador is an act of war. Right? So when they killed the ambassador, if that's the rumor, but the thing is, Allah did not send Jibreel and say, by the way, that's just a rumor. You see that? Allah knows that it's a rumor, but Allah didn't send Jibreel down and say, hey, calm down, he didn't die, he's going to be back. Nope. Allah said, take the pledge. See, test. Why? Because the Prophet was testing them, and now who's testing them? Allah is testing them. Let's see what they do. So they all took the pledge. And they only had small knives to slaughter animals. They just get those, and they're ready to go fight. And when they're ready to go fight, Uthman is coming this way. Hey guys, what are you doing? Well, we're taking revenge for your death. But it's one of the funniest scenes in Islamic history. When you're that angry, and you're that upset, it's very hard to calm down. So they got angry at Uthman. Oh, you went to do tawaf by yourself, huh? That's what took you so long? He says, Wallahi, I didn't do tawaf, what are you talking about? Yeah, you did tawaf, We don't get to go, he gets to go, right? And they got upset with him. And then they came to the Prophet ﷺ, and they complained, Uthman got to do tawaf. And he said, no, he would never do tawaf without me. So now they've been calmed down. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he, by the way, when they took this pledge, was they came for Hajj, but now they were ready to fight and die for the sake of Allah, right? This is a very, very big deal. And Allah acknowledges that this tree is very important. It's even mentioned in the Quran. إِذْ يُبَيِّعُونَكَ تَحْتَ الشَّجَرَةِ. When they took the pledge with you under the tree. Later on, in the time of Umar, people said, hey, let's go find that tree. Because that tree should be in an Islamic museum. Right? Because this is the tree mentioned in the Quran. So the companions go back to the field and they're looking for the tree. One of them says, this one. Definitely this one. The other said, no, it was that one. What are you talking about? It was that one. And they're arguing among each other, which one is the tree? Only one companion said, I know which one. I know exactly which tree it is. There's only one problem. I'm blind. So we don't know which tree. And that's actually a mercy of Allah. Because given the amazing craziness that Muslims are capable of, we would have probably turned that tree into an entire temple. There's so much jahiliyyah sometimes among even Muslims. It's a mercy of Allah that we don't know where that tree is. It would have become another Kaaba or something. So anyway, now the negotiator has come back. We're not moving forward. I don't know what we can do. And finally, the Quraysh sent someone. Did the Quraysh send anyone before? No. Khuza'a sent, Ta'if sent, Kanana sent. Who never sent? Quraysh. They never sent. This time Quraysh sends. This time Quraysh sends. But they send basically a gangster, Mikraz. This guy's not a politician. He's just a criminal who beats up people in the street. And when he comes to negotiate, it's like a man from like the Italian mafia or something. One of those guys. Hey, I want to talk to you about something. Like that guy. And so he comes, and so the Prophet ﷺ says, Hada Mikraz wa huwa rajulun fajir. Mikraz is no good. This is not going to go well. Because he's not intelligent enough to have these negotiations, and he's a criminal. So it's not going to go well. And these negotiations are not going well, and from a distance, the Prophet sees a man named Suhail. Suhail is coming. And Suhail is a very important person. Suhail is the best speaker in all of Makkah. He's called Khatibu Quraysh, the greatest speaker of Quraysh. He's one of their best politicians. And you have to understand this man Suhail very, very well if you want to understand this story, okay? So I'm going to take a couple of minutes and I'll tell you about Suhail. But before I do, I'm going to make you stand up and take a second. Stand up, refresh yourselves. You got to keep up with this. Okay. Have a seat. Helps, doesn't it? It helps. It helps. All right. What's the man's name? Suhail. The Prophet sees him and says, قَدْ سَهُلَ أَمْرُكُمْ. Your matter, this situation is about to become easier. Suhail itself means easy. He says your situation is about to become easy. Now who is Suhail? Suhail was a very big enemy of Islam. He used to be, if he had a job today, he would be on Fox News. Okay, this is Suhail. Very powerful speaker. Every time he gives a speech against Islam, millions of people listen. Lots of people listen to him, okay? He was actually in the war of Badr. He fought the Muslims at Badr. And he has two sons. Okay, he has two sons. He has Abdullah and Abu Jandal. I call him AJ. But anyway, Abdullah and AJ, it's easier to remember, right? What happened with him was, when they went to battle, he took Abdullah with him. So Abdullah and him were on the Quraysh side fighting the Muslims in the Battle of Badr. As soon as they met the enemy, Abdullah ran away and joined the Muslim army and said, Dad, sorry, I've been a Muslim for some time. I'm actually on this side. And he was a politician. And when for politicians, when they lose someone of their own family to the enemy, people say, how are you going to control a city? How are you going to control your district? You can't even control your own what? Family. It's a huge hit to a politician's reputation that in front of everybody, his own son joined the other side. Not only did he join the other side, Suhail was captured at Badr. And when he was captured at Badr, guess who tied him up? His son Abdullah. He was the prison guard over his own father. Suhail was captured, and Umar, of course, radiallahu anhu, had a suggestion. Ya Rasulullah, I think we should cut off his tongue. Because he gives really good speeches against Islam. We should at least do that, because his tongue is a weapon against Islam. So we should at least, just pull it, rip it out. I can do it. I volunteer. Rasul says, La umathilu bihi fayumathilu Allahu bihi. Please listen to this carefully. Rasul says, I will not make an example out of him. I will not torture him or mutilate him. Because if I do, Allah will do that to me. Rasulullah said, I will not torture, because if I do, Allah will torture me, even if I am the messenger of Allah, وَلَوْ كُنْتُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ even if I am the messenger of Allah. That is Islam's stance on torture and mutilation and hurting people. This is even about a prisoner of war. That's and Umar gave us, Umar's a military man. He's going to give a military suggestion. But Rasulullah has a higher standard. And he's going to hold everybody to that higher standard. And then he said something. This is back in Badr, years ago. He said, إِنَّهُ عَسَىٰ أَن يَقُومَ مَقَامًا لَا تَضُرُّهُ. Maybe one day he'll say something you like. Maybe one day. Eventually, by the way, were the prisoners of Badr killed, or were the prisoners of Badr released? They were released. So Suhail came back to Makkah. He lost one son, but at least he has one more son. What was his name? AJ, very good, Abu Jandal, AJ. He comes home and he finds out Abu Jandal is reciting Quran. Abu Jandal became Muslim too. And he is mad. He grabs his son, puts him in chains, throws him inside a dungeon, and tortures him for 4 years. He doesn't let him out of the dungeon, beats him, has someone beat him every day. Abu Jandal is in prison for 4 years. And the father, Suhail, is the negotiator coming to talk to the Prophet. That's Suhail. He comes and sits down. فَجَاءَ سُهَيْلِ بْنُ عَمْرٍ قال هاتكتب بيننا وبينكم كتابا. Come on, let's write something down. Let's make a contract. فدعا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الكاتب. The Prophet called the writer. Why did the Prophet call the writer? Because he himself was not right. So he calls the writer. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Obviously, when you're going to start a contract, the first thing you will say is what? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So he says, Amma ar-Rahman, fawallahi ma adri ma huwa. He says, what is this ar-Rahman? I swear to God, I don't know what that is. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. وَلَكِنْ أُكْتُبْ بِسْمِكَ اللَّهُمَّ كَمَا كُنْتَ تَكْتُبْ. Just write in God's name, or in your name, O God. But get rid of this ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I don't want it. And the Muslims, they got upset because all the Sahaba are right there. We're going to cut off Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And so they said, Wallahi la naktubuha illa Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wallahi, we will not write anything other than Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The Muslims are fired up. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, Uktub bismika Allahum. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, just write what he's saying. Calm down, listen to him. And the Muslims are, we don't even start the contract with Bismillah. What are we going to do? But they have to remain calm. Then the Prophet said, هَذَا مَا قَضَى عَلَيْهِ مُحَمَّدٌ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وسلم. The next line of the contract was, this is what Muhammad, the messenger of Allah, agrees to. This is the contract Muhammad, the messenger of Allah, agrees to. So he said, وَاللَّهِ لَوْ كُنَّا نَعْلَمَ أَنَّكَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ مَا صَدَدْنَاكَ عَنِ الْبَيْتِ. He says, I swear to God, if we thought you are Allah's messenger, why would we be fighting? Cross Rasulullah off. We don't want Ar-Rahman, we don't want Rasulullah. The writer couldn't do it. He couldn't cross off the Prophet's name. So the Prophet doesn't know how to read. He said, where does it say Rasulullah? He said there. So the Prophet grabbed the pen and crossed it himself. He removed it himself. Now at this point, وَلَكِنْ أُكْتُبْ مُحَمَّدْ ibn Abdullah. Don't write Muhammad Rasulullah. Write Muhammad, the son of Abdullah. Write that instead. The Muslims are furious. Wallahi inni la Rasulullah wa in kadhabtumuni. The Prophet said, you can call me a liar. I'm still Allah's messenger. Go ahead, write Muhammad, the son of Abdullah. Now, when they came up with the agreement, what is the agreement between us and the Muslims? فقال له النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم على أن تخلوا بيننا وبين البيت فنطوف به. The first condition, the Prophet said, you will let us do Umrah this time. You guys leave us alone and let us do Umrah. We came for peaceful reasons. So he says, Wallahi la tatahaddathu al-arabu anna ukhidna bughta. No, wallah, no. We will never let the Arabs say that we were pressured. We don't want to ruin our reputation. You don't get to go this year. وَلَكِنْ ذَلِكَ مِنَ الْعَامِ الْمُقْبِلِ. You come back next year. Not this year. No way. Because it's bad for our public relations. It's bad for our media. That everybody's going to say, last year they were going to kill them. This year they walked all the way to the house and did tawaf and couldn't even be touched. Wow. The Muslims got strong and the Quraysh got weak. That's pretty embarrassing. We can't have that. We're not going to let you go this year. فَعَلَى أَنَّهُ لَا يَأْتِيكَ مِنَّا رَجُلٌ وَإِنْ كَانَ عَلَى دِينِكَ إِلَّا رَدَدْتَهُ إِلَيْنَا. And Suhail said, by the way, next year, and I have one more condition. If anybody escapes from Makkah, even if they're Muslim, and they come to you, and we ask, any man comes, and they ask, you will have to bring them back to us. You will have to give us back. You don't get to keep them if we ask for them. But they use the word man, rajulun. Rajulun. So when you say man, who does it not include? Women. So lots of women started escaping. And when the women started escaping, they said, give him back, and they showed the convert. You said, Rajul. And that's when Surah Al-Mumtahina also came about the women that run and come to Makkah, right? So that was pretty awesome that the language was careful. Anyway, the Muslims, when they heard this, even if a Muslim runs away, we have to give him back? All of the Muslims were in shock. Subhanallah! Subhanallah, you don't say when something is nice. In Quran, you say Subhanallah when something is shocking. Like, oh my goodness! How can this be? That's how you say Subhanallah. So when they said Subhanallah, كيف يرد إلى المشركين وقد جاء مسلما? How can somebody be given back to the mushrikeen? He came as a Muslim. How can you do this? And most of the Muslims were muhajirun. The muhajirun came this way. If you had this policy before, there would have been no muhajirun. How can you stop muhajirun now? No more migrants. And the Prophet ﷺ is not agreeing yet. And as they're discussing this, as they are discussing this, إِذْ دَخَلَ أَبُو جَنْدَ ibn Suhayl ibn Amr وَيُرْصَفُ فِي قُيُوبِهِ Allah. They're discussing this and the Muslims are saying, no way, we will not give the Muslim back. And AJ, remember AJ? Where was AJ originally? Where was he kept? In a dungeon being tortured. He escaped the dungeon with his chains and came running to the Muslims and fell on the ground while they're discussing this. And because he heard that the Muslims are here, so he made his escape and fell there. And as he fell there, وَقَدْ خَرَجَ مِنْ أَسْفَلِ مَكَّةِ حَتَّى رَمَى بِنَفْسِهِ بَيْنَ أَظْهُرِ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. He had come from the other end of Makkah, hiding and escaping, trying to make his way all the way to the Muslims. فَقَالَ سُهَيْلٌ. In another narration, Suhail actually, his father got up and smacked him across the face. He slapped his son in front of the Muslims. And then he sat down and said, هذا يا محمد أول ما أقاضيك عليه أن ترده إلي. This one, we begin with him. You give him back to me. Now the Muslims are, and فضرب وجهه وأخذ بتلابيبه. He grabbed him by the neck after smacking him. His son, and he's going to take him back. يا محمد قد لجت القضية بيني وبينك قبل أن يأتيك هذا. No contract if you don't give me this one. See, for Suhail, he's a negotiator, but this is personal. He lost 2 sons on this. So this is very personal for him. And so now the Muslims are watching another fellow Muslim being tortured and beat in front of them. The Prophet ﷺ says, إِنَّا لَمْ نَقْتِ الْكِتَابَ بَعْدَ. We didn't write it down yet. We didn't agree yet. And Suhail says, فَوَاللَّهِ إِذَنْ لَنْ أُصَالِحَكَ عَلَى شَيْءٍ أَبَدًا. If you don't agree to this, forget about negotiations. Let's do war. The Prophet ﷺ has never begged before. Never. Until this day. فَأَجْزِهِ. Just give him to me as a gift. Why don't you just give him as a goodwill gesture? I'll take him. The Prophet ﷺ says this and he says, مَا أَنَا بِمُجِيزِهِ لَكَ. I am not giving him to you as a gift. There is no way I'm giving him up. Bala, faf'al, just do it. The Prophet says, just do it. And he says, مَا أَنَا بِفَاعِلٍ. I'm not going to do it. Mikras, remember the thug? He stepped in and he said, okay, we won't torture him anymore. Is that good enough? We'll take him back, we'll take the chains off, and he can live normal, no more torture. The Muslims are screaming, Subhanallah, كيف يرد إلى المشركين وجاء مسلما. How can this be, oh God? You're going to send him back to the mushrikeen? Look at what they did to him. You're going to just let him go back? وَجَعَلَ أَبُو جَنْدَلْ يَصْرِخُ بِأَعْلَى صَوْتِهِ. And AJ himself, Abu Jandal himself, starts crying as loudly as he can. يَا مَعْشَرَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ أُرَدُّوا إِلَى الْمُشْرِكِينَ يَفْتِنُونَنِي فِي دِينِي. Muslims, come on, don't do this to me. You're going to let me go back? They're going to keep torturing me just because of my religion. Please, save me. And then the Prophet turns to Abu Jandal. Ya Abu Jandal, isbir, wahtasib. Abu Jandal, be patient. Be patient. And just hold yourself back. فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ جَاعِلٌ لَكَ وَلِمَنْ مَعَكَ مِنَ الْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ فَرَجًا وَمَخْرَجًا. Allah will make a way out for you, and Allah will find some way for you to get out of this mess. Just be patient. Do the Muslims want to hear this right now? Just be patient? They see their fellow brother bleeding. They want to take some action. And the Prophet is saying, just be patient, inshallah, everything will be okay. You know when you're angry and somebody says, inshallah, everything will be okay? You're like, yeah, it'll be okay. I want it to be okay right now. I don't need we'll be okay later. Why can't we just do something right now? وَإِنَّا صَلَحْنَا الْقَوْمَ وَإِنَّا لَا نَعْمَلْ. And we agreed now and we won't go back on our promise. Umar can't take it, of course. Umar takes his sword, puts it on the side of his horse, and slowly walks his horse over to Abu Jandal. And looks at Abu Jandal and says, and Abu Jandal is confused. And then he goes and whispers to Abu Jandal, listen, innama hum mushrik. They're just mushrik. I know that's your dad, but he's mushrik. Their blood is like the blood of dogs. Just kill him. We can't kill him because we have an agreement. You have no agreement. Just kill him. Take my sword. Just do it. But he said, that's my dad. I can't do it. And Umar later on said, رَجَوْتُ أَنْ يَأْخُذَ السَّيْفَ وَيَضْرِبَ بِهِ أَبَاهُ. I was hoping he'd just grab the sword and just strike down his father, but he couldn't do it. So now Abu Jandal is going to be grabbed by his father. And the agreement is, by the way, we're not going to fight for 10 years. He grabbed by his father and he's walking through 1,400 Muslims. He's taking him back. The Muslims are so upset. They've never been this upset in the history of Islam. Never. Umar bin al-Khattab, for the first time in his life, does something he's never done before. He goes to the Prophet and says, Alasta Nabiyallahi haqqan? Are you not actually God's prophet? Are you really God's prophet? And the Prophet said, Bala, of course I am. And he says, Alasna ala al-haq wa aduwuna ala al-batil? Aren't we the people that are committed to the truth? Aren't these people wrong? Aren't the Quraysh wrong? Bala, the Prophet said, of course. قال عمر فلما نعطي الدنيا في ديننا? Then how come we have our hand down like beggars like this? How come we have no respect? He's talking to who? The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إني رسول الله. The messenger said, I am Allah's messenger. وَلَسْتُ أَعْصِيهِ. I will not disobey Allah. And then he says, and Allah, وَهُوَ نَاصِرِي, Allah will help me. Umar, he's not done yet. By the way, if somebody raises their voice to the Prophet, what do the rest of the people do? They stop them. But did Abu Bakr stop him? Did Uthman stop him? Did anybody stop him? Why do you think they didn't stop him? Because they feel the same way. They all feel the same way. And Umar is not done. Umar says, كُنْتَ تُحَدِّثُنَا أَنَّ سَنَأْتِ الْبَيْتِ فَنَطُوفُ. Didn't you tell us that you saw a dream that we're going to do tawaf? Isn't that why we're here? The Prophet said, بَلَا أَفَأَخْبَرْتُكَ أَنَّ نَأْتِيهِ الْعَامِ. Yes, I did tell you that, but did I say it's going to be this year? And Umar says, La, no, not exactly. فَإِنَّكَ آتِيهِ وَمَطُوفٌ بِهِ. But you are here. Why did you come here if it's not this year? Umar is upset. He walks away. He goes to Abu Bakr. He says, he asks Abu Bakr the same exact question. Isn't he God's prophet? Didn't he see a dream? And Umar says, hold yourself, man. Calm yourself down. Because if you keep going this way, you will lose all the good you've ever earned in your life. He wasn't the only companion. The Prophet ﷺ then says to the companions, we're going to leave now. No Hajj. Let me tell you something. Let me put this away. I want you to understand something. Anybody here gone to Hajj? Gone to Hajj? Okay. May Allah give all of you the rizq to go to Hajj. When you go to Hajj, you save so much money. You make so many preparations. It's so difficult of a journey. When you finally get there, and you're standing there in the line, the passport checkpoint, and they say, actually, this flight, Turkish Airlines 544, everybody has to go back. You don't get to go to Hajj. Go back. Ihram is already on. Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik is already going on. You've already left Jeddah airport. You're arriving in, and they say go back. What's going to happen at the airport? What do you think? CNN is going to happen at the airport. People are not calm when you do this. There's going to be a riot. How many people are with the Prophet? 1,400 people. Are they angry right now? Extremely. Even Umar is raising his voice to who? The Prophet ﷺ. You expect right now a riot is going to happen. The Prophet comes. He says, shave your heads, take your ihram off, slaughter the animal. They're all sitting there staring at him. Nobody listens. They don't even move. The Prophet says, maybe they didn't hear me. So he tells them again, shave your heads, remove your ihram, slaughter the animals. Nobody moves. This is the Sahaba, radiyallahu anhum, wa radu anhum, sami'na wa ata'na. This is the people who hear and they obey. This is Allah is happy with them and they are happy with Allah. And the Rasul of Allah is speaking to them, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and he says, come on, shave your heads, take the ihram off, slaughter the animal, and how many people listen? Nobody. 3 times, nobody listens. The Prophet goes back in his camp. This has never happened before. They've never collectively disobeyed Allah's messenger before. And you would think if something like that happens, Quran should come down. Quran should come down and tell them, Isma'u, ati'u. Quran came down before. When somebody raised their voice, Quran came down, la tarfa'u aswatakum fawqa sawtin nabi. Don't raise your voice above the Prophet's voice. Quran like that has come down. How come the Quran came down now? The Prophet goes to our mother, Salama, and says they didn't listen. She says, don't worry, you do your ihram, you shave your head, you take your ihram off, you slaughter the animal, they will do what you want. There's another problem, by the way. When he goes out, he calls the barber, they start shaving the head, everybody starts shaving their head. Everybody took their ihram off. But are they happy right now? No. And they're going to slaughter what? The animals. Where's the meat going to go? Do you know? The meat is going to go to Makkah. These people just humiliated us. They stopped us from doing Hajj and Umrah. They took our brother Abu Jandal back. And now we will gift them what? The meat of all these animals that we brought. This is the first Eid al-Adha, by the way. Every time you and I eat the meat of the slaughter, you have to remember the tears of those people. We get to slaughter the animal now, they had to pay it with tears. There was nobody celebrating this Eid. Nobody was celebrating. You know what the Muslims did? They found the camel of Abu Jahl. They captured the camel of Abu Jahl in Badr. And they cut its head off, and they put it on a tray, and they took that one first. Just to let them know we hate you, but still, you can have the meat. You know? And so the entire meat was sent to the people of Makkah. And the Muslims are going back. By the way, which way are they going to go back? The same way they came. And what happens when you go back that way? And they're doing that. I'm almost done now. You're going to get a 15-minute break. I know I took a long time, but I needed to get the story out. Umar starts feeling bad. He comes up to the Prophet ﷺ. Ya Rasulullah, can I talk to you? The Prophet doesn't even look at him. So he slows down his horse. And then a few minutes later, he speeds it up. Ya Rasulullah, can I talk to you? Doesn't even look at him. And he pulls back. He comes a third time, Ya Rasulullah, please, can I talk to you? Rasulullah won't even look at him. He goes back and back and back, and he goes all the way to the back. And he says, somebody let my mother know that she should start crying, because Umar is as good as dead. Umar is done. And so, a couple of hours later, somebody came to Umar. And they said, the Prophet is calling you. And Umar got nervous. فَخَشِيتُ أَن نَزَلَ فِيَّ قُرْآنٌ. I was so scared, some ayat of the Quran came about my behavior. And so I leave you with that. When he comes up to the Prophet, what happens next is going to be in our next session. This break is about 15 minutes long. I hope you guys survive it, make some new friends and enemies. I'll be right here, inshallah. I'll actually walk through the sister side, inshallah. You can cut the mic off. In modern day terminology, you would say that the Quraysh thought that the Muslims were some kind of a illegal or terrorist group. And for a government, you have to say that a government never negotiates with terrorists. They are not a legitimate entity. You can't negotiate with them. You can fight them, you can imprison them, but you don't negotiate with them. Because once you negotiate with them, it's like they became official. They are now a legitimate entity. The fact that the Quraysh agreed to write a contract with the Muslims, it doesn't matter if the agreement was against the Muslims. That doesn't matter. What matters, the fact that they wrote an agreement means they have accepted the Muslims as a legitimate entity. This is a political analysis of the situation. You remember I started the history lesson with Ahzab. All those groups came to kill everybody in Medina. Remember that? Those groups that came, they spent a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of energy to come and kill the Muslims. They were not the enemy of the Muslims. The only actual enemy of the Muslims was Quraysh. Everybody else came for easy money, capitalism. That's why they came. But did they make any money? No. They came outside, stayed for how many days? You remember? 25 days. Nothing happened, and then now they have to go back. They spent all this money on resources, military expense, and they made no return on investment. And the only reason they agreed to come is because Quraysh convinced them. Now that Quraysh convinced them to spend all this money and it produced no results, they have lost credibility with Quraysh. They no longer think Quraysh has good ideas. Now, on top of that, the Muslims have the courage to go all the way to Makkah to try to do Hajj. And even these tribes are thinking, not only do the Quraysh not have enough power to kill the Muslims they're not scared. They went all the way to Makkah even unarmed. And on top of that, now what is spreading in the entire region is, not only are the Quraysh scared, they were so scared they had to write a contract. So now the reputation of Quraysh in all of the region is becoming very weak. People do not see them as strong, and instead now they're seeing the Muslims as strong. And in this time, there's going to be peace negotiations. For 10 years, there is no fighting. And while there is no fighting, the Muslims will go to every single one of the tribes and say, are you with us or against us? Are you with us or against us? Are you with us or against us? And when they do that, the tribes will think, even the Quraysh is scared of them. Why should we fight them? So they'll start joining the side of the Muslims. I already told you the Quraysh lost Khuza'ah, Kanana, Taif. They lost those. But now they're going to start losing the entire region. If you can think of the map is shrinking for Quraysh, and the map is expanding for the Muslims in terms of influence. Muslim influence is increasing because of this treaty. But of course, this is political analysis years later. You can see this years later. If you were walking back through the field and getting scraped, you would not be thinking, this is pretty good. This is a really good idea. This is a political victory for us. Nobody's thinking that at the time. Nobody at all was thinking that at the time. So even though I've given you a very quick political analysis, that is not even the real analysis. This session, actually instead of 3, I can reduce it down to 2 sessions. Inshallah, this session is the reason I came here. This is actually the reason I came here. And I gave you all of that history so I can talk to you about what I want to talk to you about now. The greatest students of the Prophet ﷺ are the companions. Everybody knows that. We read about the Quran. They heard the Quran for the first time. We hear that this occasion, this surah came down. They lived in that occasion. That was their life. The Quran is actually a commentary on their life and their conversations. Umar went up to the Prophet how many times? Do you remember? 3 times. The Prophet doesn't talk to him. The 4th time, the Prophet calls him. I want to talk to you. He comes all the way up. And he says, I saw the Prophet's face lit up. There was so much nur on the Prophet's face. You know, مِمَّا طَلَعَتْ عَلَيْهِ الشَّمْسِ, it was lighting. It would have more light than the sun could have on the entire earth. I have never seen the Prophet with a bigger smile, he says. Why is the Prophet smiling? Everybody else in the caravan is crying. Everybody else is angry. Even the Prophet himself was upset. He was so upset he didn't even talk to Umar 3 times. And now, he's extremely happy. And he calls Umar close. And Umar comes close. And he says, Allah revealed to me this surah. And he starts reciting Quran. إِنَّا فَتَحْنَا لَكَ فَتْحًا مُبِينًا لِيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ وَيُتِمَّ نِعْمَتَهُ عَلَيْكَ وَيَهْدِيَكَ صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا وَيَنْصُرَكَ اللَّهُ نَصْرًا عَزِيزًا. The surah goes on and on and on and on. 4 pages in Al-Mus'haf. So the Fath, 4 pages in Al-Mus'haf. 29 ayats. The Prophet recites the whole thing. Who did he recite it to? Umar. The first ayah of the surah is إِنَّا فَتَحْنَا لَكَ فَتْحًا مُبِينًا. No doubt about it, we have given you a victory that is absolutely clear. I'll translate that again. Allah says that He has given a victory that is absolutely what? Clear. It's not clear to anybody. It was not clear to Umar. It was not clear to Abu Bakr. It was not clear to Abu Jandal. AJ, it was not clear to 1,400 companions. It wasn't even clear to the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How is Allah saying this is a clear victory? And we will give you victory. We already gave you victory. It would have been easier for me to say, Allah is saying, Inna sanaftahu. We will give you a clear victory. Makkah will be conquered. The idols will be destroyed. You will get to meet Hajj. That is the victory. No. Quran says we already gave it to you. You already have it. How do we already have it? We didn't even get to meet Hajj. We gave all the meat to the enemy. We let Abu Jahl go back and be tortured. We accepted this humiliating treaty. Where in the world is victory? The Prophet ﷺ recites the entire surah. Umar is listening to the whole thing, but his head is spinning. He has the same questions I'm giving you. So when he listens to the whole thing, he asks one question. After listening to the entire surah, he asks, Afathun huwa? Is that victory? He's confused. And the Prophet says, Na'am, yes it is. And Umar is delighted. He's so happy. And then he says about himself, I never felt happier. I was reading this and I got confused. Nothing has changed. They're still walking through burning rocks. They still left the animals back there. Abu Jahl is still in prison. Nothing has changed. Except some words came from the sky. That's the only difference. And yet, because of these words, Allah says, I don't care what you see in front of you, the reality is this is already a victory. This, ladies and gentlemen, is an incredible thing to understand. If you understand this, your view of Islam completely changes. When we study Islam, a lot of times, we study history. And we study history, and then we say, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then the ayah came down. Even when I gave you this lecture for an hour and a half, I gave you what? History. And now we're going to talk about the Quran. You may have heard that you cannot understand the ayat of the Quran until you understand the what? History. When was this ayah revealed? What was the occasion? That is only half true. What I'm here to tell you is that we have to reverse this. You cannot understand history until you understand the Quran. History will not help you understand the Quran. The Quran will help you understand history. Allah gave Quran many names. One of its names is Nur, light. Light is actually the way by which you can see. Without light, you can't see. If Quran is Nur, you don't see Quran through history, you put the Nur of the Quran on history. You understand? We, all this time, what we do is, we actually look at history and then interpret the Quran. Even the Sahaba could not interpret what happened at Hudaybiyah. They couldn't understand it. For them, if you ask every single one of them, before this ayah came down, if you ask 1 minute before this ayah came down, was this victory or loss? What would be their answer? Loss. Every single one of them, their analysis will be that this is a loss. The only one who gives the analysis that this is a victory is who? It's Allah. Which means there's a big difference between the way we study history and the way Allah wants us to look at history. There's a huge difference between those two. We study the history of Islam without the Quran, actually. As a matter of fact, we study it and then we force it on the Quran. That's what we do. And until we reverse this situation, we're not going to get the clear picture of Allah's deen. This session is about understanding how was all of that victory. What does Allah mean by victory? First of all, understand that the surah, when Allah says, I have given you the greatest of all victories, why did they leave Medina? Can you answer that question? Why did the companions leave Medina? To do what? Umrah. To go to the Kaaba. Ask another important question. Why do you go to the Kaaba? Why do you go to Hajj? What's the reason? Anyone? Because it's fun? Why is it fun? What do you get out of it beyond the fun? What is the gift of Allah once you go to Hajj? What are you hoping for? Thank you. Forgiveness. The entire purpose of Hajj is what? Forgiveness. If you go to Hajj, you're hoping that Allah will give you a new slate, isn't it? That's the point of it. That's your motivation. Now, Rasulullah is told, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I have already given you the most clear, concise, unconfusing victory. So Allah can forgive you. You didn't even go to Hajj, but Allah still gave you what? Forgiveness. The goal wasn't Hajj. That's just a means. What's the actual goal? Forgiveness. That's the actual goal. You have already attained that. The Sahaba who went through that valley, the Prophet ﷺ says, nobody who goes through that valley with his scrapes, the fire of hell will not touch any of them. When they took the pledge under the tree, he said, أَنْتُمْ خَيْرُ أَهْلِ الْأَرْضِ الْيَوْمِ. You are the best people on the face of the earth today. These people didn't get to do Hajj, but they earned something even greater than Hajj, the forgiveness of Allah. That's point number one. Is that clear to everybody? Now we're learning something even more powerful. The mission of the Prophet ﷺ. The mission of the Prophet ﷺ is to actually make forgiveness easy for people. Surah Al-Fath began with forgiveness. Surah Al-Fath ends with forgiveness. وَعَدَ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ مِنْهُمْ مَغْفِرَةً وَأَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. That's how it ends. It begins with forgiveness and it ends with forgiveness. And it's 29 ayat, and the middle ayat is also forgiveness. وَلِلَّهِ مُلْكُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ يَغْفِرُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيُعَذِّبُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ غَفُورًا رَحِيمًا. That's the middle. The beginning, middle, and end of this entire surah is what? Forgiveness. Whether you win or not, whether Abu Jahl is in prison or not, whether the Kaaba is surrounded by idols or not, whether the Muslims are coming back or they get to eat the meat or not, none of that matters, because the only thing that actually matters is Allah's forgiveness. That's a very powerful analysis, because that means that sometimes, even for the sake of Islam, we start thinking about the cause of Islam in material terms. We think Islam is victorious when you have control over the land. Islam is victorious when you crush the enemy. Islam is victorious when you put the flag up. Allah is saying Islam is victorious when you have forgiveness. And actually, when he talked about the land of Kaaba, when he talked about that land, what did he say? وَأُخْرَى لَمْ تَقْدِرُوا عَلَيْهَا قَدْ أَحَاطَ اللَّهُ بِهَا. Secondarily, there's land that you haven't even seized control of yet. That's okay, Allah's got that covered. That's not your big problem. Your bigger problem is forgiveness. Here's the second. And this is the more important one. Forgiveness is not for this world. Forgiveness is for where? Akhirah. You don't need forgiveness here. You need forgiveness when you stand in front of Allah on Judgment Day. There are two goals of Islam. There's a goal in the next life, and there's also a goal in this life. There's a victory of that life, and there's a victory of this life. So now this surah, because this is the surah of victory, that's what it's called, Surah Al-Fatih. This is Allah telling me and you, what does Fatih mean? What does victory mean? Victory in the next life, I already explained to you. It means forgiveness. But what does victory mean in this life? How many people went with the Prophet? 1,400. If you tell 1,400 people that they cannot make Hajj and they have to go back, if you tell 1,400 people that their brother who came to them bleeding and crying has to be sent back, if you tell 1,400 people that they can watch the Prophet's name be crossed off and the word Ar-Rahman be erased from a contract, 1,400 of those people that were willing to die for the Prophet and came all the way risking their life, if you tell those people that we're going to go back without doing Hajj, you can understand that even people like Umar among them are going to lose their temper. They're going to be very, very upset. And those people, the Prophet will tell them to obey him how many times? 3 times. And they will listen or no? No, but that is actually one of the greatest moments in the history of the entire Quran. Any other group of 1,400 people, forget 1,400, let me give you the example of 5 people. If I have 5 angry young men and there's only one of me, can I control them? I can't. I can't even control 1 or 2. What about 10? What about 20? What about 100? Is there any microphone system? Is there any police that is holding them down with water to calm them down? Is there any tear gas involved? They were able to calm themselves like no group of people in human history has ever been able to calm themselves. Do you understand that? Any other group of people that experienced what the Sahaba experienced would have been a riot, would have become violent. You understand that, right? But they didn't. How does Allah describe this as victory? هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين ليزدادوا إيمانا مع إيمانهم ولله جنود السماوات والأرض وكان الله عليما حكيما. Allah is the one who puts sakina deep, sakina means peace, tranquility, deep inside the hearts of the believers. Allah is the one who put it in there. They were not capable of it. Allah is telling us when the Muslim Ummah is able to calm down in the face of all the aggravation in the world, and they're able to hold themselves back because of the sakina Allah put inside of their hearts, there is no greater victory. The most incredible victory is the maturity of the companions in this world. And that's why I'm a student of the organization of the Quran, the nazm of the Quran. And one part, there's many parts of studying the organization of the Quran. One part of the organization of the Quran is usually Allah teaches you something in the beginning and He completes it at the end of a surah. When you go to the end of the surah, you learn that the Prophet is being shown what the ultimate victory is. Allah says, لَقَدْ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ رَسُولَهُ الرُّؤْيَا بِالْحَقِّ. Allah told the Prophet the dream was true. That dream was not a lie. You will go to the masjid and you will be shaving your heads. It'll happen. But then he talks about the Prophet and the people next to him. That's the ultimate victory of the Prophet ﷺ is not land, it's not even the Kaaba. The ultimate victory of the Prophet ﷺ is the people that he produced. Please understand that. In the next life, the victory is forgiveness. In this life, victory is the people you produce. The people that the Quran produced. The maturity that it produced. Why? Because Allah compares them to a crop. He says, وَمَثَلُهُمْ فِي الْإِنْجِيلِ كَزَرْعٍ أَخْرَجَ شَطْأَهُ فَآزَرَهُ فَاسْتَغْلَظَ فَاسْتَوَى عَلَى سُوقِهِ. It's like a crop, it's a little bit of a blade, and it grows and it grows and it grows, and it's taller than the farmer, and it becomes thick. It becomes mature. What Allah is teaching us here is that the Quran was able to mature these people and give them discipline and self-control more than anything else in human history could ever have given. And this self-control and this discipline, that even when they disobeyed the Prophet, even then they were more obedient than any human beings have ever been. Even that was amazing on their part. This is actually the greatest accomplishment of the Prophet. This is what makes the kuffar angry. Now let's bring this to our reality today. For so many people, the goal of Islam is fighting. For so many people, the goal of Islam is destroying the enemies of Islam. For so many people, the goal of Islam is revenge. For so many people, the goal of Islam has nothing to do with forgiveness. Nothing to do with it. And for so many people, because in the name of Islam, they create chaos. And yet the victory of Islam is when you have discipline. When you're mature and you're organized and you hold yourself back and you show restraint. This is the actual ultimate victory. The Prophet ﷺ is insulted. Somebody makes a cartoon against him. Somebody makes a movie against him. Somebody makes a dirty joke against him. What happens in the Muslim world? We are flipping cars over, burning down stores, we stone a KFC because it's kafir fried chicken, and what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq heard the Prophet being cursed. Umar ibn al-Khattab saw the Prophet's name being cut off. They got angry, but they held themselves back. This is the Quran's picture of victory. This is the picture that we have to embody and internalize ourselves. I want to give you just glimpses of the surah, because it's 29 ayat, it's a long surah. But I just want to show you how Allah defines and how Allah dictates what does it mean that we belong to this religion. You know the entire purpose of the Prophet's life, sallallahu alaihi wasallam? I'll take you back to that. I'll share 3 more things with you and I'm done for the evening. 3 things I want to share with you. The first of them, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's mission was to fulfill the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, actually. Islam has many names. One of its names is Millata Abikum Ibrahim, the religion of your father, Ibrahim. Ibrahim alayhi salam is not just called our prophet, he's also called our father. We have a loving relationship with him beyond respect. It's a close family relationship we have to him, alayhi salam. Ibrahim alayhi salam is the one who built the Kaaba. The Prophet's mission was to liberate that Kaaba because his father had built it. He's fulfilling what his father started. Okay? Now, why did the father build it? The father, when he built that Kaaba, Ibrahim alayhi salam, he was hoping all humanity could find forgiveness here. Those are the du'as of Ibrahim alayhi salam. He wasn't concerned for one nation, one group of people. He was concerned for all of humanity. That was the Prophet's mission, to open this door so that Muslims can become ambassadors to all of humanity. Never forget that we as Muslims actually follow the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam. I have conversations with Christian ministers and rabbis, and my first conversation with them isn't about Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because you cannot understand Muhammad Rasulullah until you understand who? Ibrahim alayhi salam. That's the one who made that dua. رَبَّنَا وَابْعَثْ فِيهِمْ رَسُولًا مِّنْهُمْ يَتْلُو عَلَيْهِمْ آيَاتِكَ وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَيُزَكِّيهِمْ. That's the dua of Ibrahim alayhi salam, to come, to ask for a prophet to come. So if you understand that, then you understand the entire purpose restoring the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam on this earth, who was concerned about all of humanity. You know the unfortunate thing about the Muslims in the world? It's so sad today. There are Muslims living in India. There are Muslims living in Sri Lanka. Muslims living in Malaysia, for example. Other parts of the world. Here, we have Christians living next to us, Hindus living next to us, Buddhists living next to us. But they have no idea that this religion came for all of them. No clue. We've lived with them for hundreds of years and they don't know. All they know is Muslims eat halal. And the Muslims don't like to be near us. And they like to keep themselves separate. Is this the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam? Is this how we behave towards others? وَإِذْ جَعَلْنَا الْبَيْتَ مَثَابَةً لِلنَّاسِ لِلنَّاسِ not لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ لِلنَّاسِ. This was an open invitation. We have to open it again. I get worried. In the month of Ramadan, we worship more, we come to the masjid more, we stay with each other more, right? What does the Quran say about the month of Ramadan? هُدًى لِلنَّاسِ. This is the month to remind yourself the Quran came for all people. In the month of Ramadan, you're supposed to be more social and remind others of the message of Islam more than any other month. Everything about us became about ourselves instead of being about people. That's the first point I wanted to share with you. The second point I want to share with you, I think is very valuable, building on the first point, the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam, is I'd like to ask, there are 3 prophets who had a dream mentioned in the Quran. Can you tell me who they are? 3 prophets who had a dream mentioned in the Quran. Yusuf, very good. The dream of the 11 stars and the sun and the moon. Yeah? That's one dream. What else? Ibrahim alayhi salam. What's the dream of Ibrahim alayhi salam? I see in my dream that I am slaughtering. And the third dream is the one I just told you about. لَقَدْ صَدَقَ اللَّهُ رَسُولَهُ الرُّؤْيَا بِالْحَقِّ. The dream was that the Prophet will do Hajj. So there are 3 dreams. Once again, Ibrahim, who else? Yusuf and Rasulullah. Of course, there's the dream of the king, right? The king in Yusuf, but that's not a prophet. That's some other thing. Prophets only have 3 dreams in the Quran. These are the 3. And all 3 of these are connected to each other. I'm going to show you how they're all connected to each other. The oldest of these 3 dreams is the dream of Ibrahim, the ancient one. What was his dream? That he is slaughtering his son. That act of slaughtering his son, the son was replaced with an animal, and that became a tradition. And that tradition continued and continued and continued and became part of which ibadah for the Muslims? Hajj. And at Hajj, when you complete the Hajj, you slaughter the animal. The Prophet, our Prophet, saw a dream that he's going to shave his head, that he's going to take the ihram off. And when you do that, what do you do next? You slaughter the animal. Our Prophet's dream was actually the final version of the dream of Ibrahim alayhi salam. What started with Ibrahim alayhi salam is now reached the full analysis, full completion with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I told you, our religion is the fulfillment of the legacy of Ibrahim alayhi salam. His dream and the Prophet's dream are directly related. You see that yet? Okay. Which dream is left? Yusuf. What was Yusuf's dream? Do you remember? How many stars? 11 stars, sun and the moon. And what are they doing? They're doing sajda. Do you remember what happened in the story? What did the dream mean? Eventually Yusuf had power. And his brothers became humble. And when they became humble, he said, I will not hurt you today. There's no harm that shall come upon you today. And he forgave them. So the brothers of Yusuf did wrong to him, and eventually he overpowered them, and he forgave them. Yes? Let me tell you what happened. The Prophet's dream, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was fulfilled. Makkah was conquered. When Makkah was conquered, the Prophet had power over his brothers. Who were his brothers? The Quraysh. When he had power over his brothers, he gathered them all. He gathered them all. And he said, I will say to you today what my brother Yusuf said. La tathriba alaykum al-yawm. No harm will come on you today. The conquest of Makkah The fulfillment of the dua of Ibrahim, the fulfillment of the dream of the Prophet, is also actually the complete fulfillment of the dream of Yusuf alayhi salam. Which is incredible, because if you go back, there's a family. Ibrahim is the father. One dream is with Ismail. The other dream is from the line of Ishaq, Yusuf. And Rasulullah is a fulfillment of both lines. He confirms everything about Tawat, and he confirms the dua of Ismail alayhi salam. He's the complete final messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Even the dreams of the Quran are deeply connected to each other. It's so beautiful. It's so very profound. I felt that I should share this narrative with you. It leads to many other things. Maybe just one of those things I will share with you, inshallah. That's my last message to all of you. I've been studying the Quran for about 20 years now. And the way I started is not where I am now. I decided about 2 years ago that I'm going to start my study of the Quran over again. And I'm going to assume that I don't know anything. So when I study a surah, I pretend I don't know anything. And I exhaust myself in asking questions. I actually put a team of people together. We study the Quran together. And my job is to try to understand how a surah is organized. My teammates, one of them studies the Bible, the Hebrew text, the extra biblical literature, Greek literature, anything and everything the Quran touches, we study. So if the Quran is talking about Ashabul Kahf, the people of the what? The people of the cave, then we're going to study the Jacobite Christians who celebrate the 7 saints of the cave and their Aramaic materials. And we're also going to study Greek literature that mentions the people of the cave. We're also going to study any Hebrew material we can find on the people of the cave. And we're going to see what was going on and how did the Quran comment on it. If we're going to study Surah Al-Baqarah, we're going to study a lot of Jewish history. And we're not just going to study it from the Muslim sources, we'll study from the Jewish sources too. We want to understand what was going on in the head of those rabbis. And then the third part of my team, we study the Mufassirun. Like Ibn Kathir, Rahimahullah, Razi, Kashaf, Zamakhshari, others. And we just all of them, and we kind of compare what's been said in our history. And then my job is to sit all of these people together, and we have long discussions about a single ayah, and then I give a lecture on it. That's my job. That's what I do. And I try to do it in a way that's easy to understand, inshallah. My hope is, through this, it's not just an academic study of the Quran. I honestly feel that the Ummah today is on fire. I feel like that. The Ummah is on fire. And there's a lot of hate being taught in the name of Islam. There's a lot of anger being taught in the name of Islam. And the only thing that can put out a fire is what? Water. And the Quran is compared with rain. Right? Allah calls the Quran rain. If you want to put the fire out, you have to bring the rain back. You have to make it accessible. I actually have some pretty grand plans that I want to leave you with, and there are a lot of young people in the audience, and I don't know if I'll get a chance to speak with all of you, but I will give you at least an email address to at least try and reach me, inshallah. Here's my grand plan. 2 things I want to see. I don't think the world becomes a better place when you change people's behavior. I think the world becomes a better place when you change people's ideas. You have to change people's ideas, not their behavior. Once the ideas change, what automatically changes? Behavior changes. Look, there are people in the world, Muslims in the world, that are easily willing to fight other Muslims. No problem. They'll pick up a gun and point it at another Muslim. It happens all the time. That did not happen overnight. There was an education, there was a propaganda, there was a systematic mind brainwashing that took place for many years, maybe since childhood, that got to a point where that kind of behavior became easy. If you're going to say that shooting of the gun is a problem, you've only looked at the last part of the problem. You have to go back to the root of the problem, the way these people were educated when they were young. How did they think about their religion? How did they think about the world around them? And I'm arguing until you make the religious understanding, Islam's understanding, rooted in the Quran. The heart of it is the Quran, and through it everything else. Until then, you are only going to get chaos. You're only going to get this school of thought versus that school of thought. This group versus that group. These people versus those people. when you make the Quran the center, you still study all of the ulum, you will get an ummah that is merciful. You're actually going to get, people that are ruhama bainahum. They're actually going to, somebody says, they pray and they get, they're Muslim, that's good enough. وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَنْ أَلْقَى إِلَيْكُمُ السَّلَامَ لَسْتَ مُؤْمِنًا. It's going to be good enough. We're going to become a very different ummah if our education becomes rooted in the Quran. Now that's a pretty big mission. And I need a lot of help in that mission. My job is to study and produce as much material as I can in English. My hope is to actually, eventually, sooner rather than later, even have a campus in Turkey. Inshallah ta'ala. And inshallah. Big God. Big God. And look, to put a campus together, to put this education together, money is not the problem. Resources are not the problem. You know what the problem is? People. I need young people. I need charismatic, smart, intelligent, thought-provoking, people that are going to just commit themselves to studying this book and analyzing it and then presenting its message intelligently in their society. I don't want to produce ulama. Alhamdulillah, we have amazing ulama and they're our teachers and our mentors. I want the young men and women here that are MBAs, that are physicians, that are engineers, that are architects, that are accountants, maybe not accountants. Okay, even accountants. But they're also well educated in their religion. And they can represent their religion. Because Islam is not, once you do Islam, you don't do anything else. That's not true. I want people that excel in everything that they do. That is the kind of ambassador of Islam we need. Honest to God, this country, particularly this country, Turkey, is in a position to be a role model for the entire ummah. You guys don't realize what you have. Maybe you focus on the problem. Maybe, I don't know. When I come from the outside, I know what you have. I see what you have. It's amazing. I've been around the world. I don't see anything near what you have here. You have an incredible opportunity. And the thing that, what a lot of people think is the weakness, is its strength. It's its young people. I think honestly, alhamdulillah, Allah has given me a lot of gifts in life. Being able to see all of you is one of them. One of the gifts Allah gave me is the ability to learn Arabic without traveling to the Arab world. I learned Arabic in New York City, part-time, while working at a shoe store and going to college. And the shoe store was there so I could pay the tuition for the college. That's when I learned Arabic. And I studied Quran part-time. But I was able to develop certain standards. And now that has become an institution. And now young people are learning Arabic from me in America. And it's become kind of a standardized education. They're getting amazing results. I want to be able to replicate those standards in Turkish, to replicate them in Somali, in Bahasa, in Urdu, in Farsi. But, hold on. Don't clap, you have to work, hold on. But I can't do that without dedicated young people. I need people that are going to commit themselves, that are going to excel. And I need the smartest of them, and I need the most charismatic of them. I need people with magnetic personalities, people that know how to carry themselves, really represent themselves. These are the future ambassadors of our religion. Not only will they learn the language of the Quran, they'll learn the message of the Quran. And to be able to present it, so many of you have headphones on. You don't understand what I'm saying in English, and that's okay. Inshallah, one day I'll learn enough Turkish. I think I can learn it in 6 weeks, honestly, I think. I don't know if I have 6 weeks, but I might. But no time at home, relax. Okay. But honestly, if I can find enough of you that can take this up as a mission and create a new awareness of the Quran and critical thinking of Muslims through the Quran, it's a different generation in 10 years. Honestly, it's just a different ummah in 10 years. We can transform the state of the ummah. Today, when Ramadan comes, alhamdulillah, is what's happening. Nobody knows what's going on in Salah. I think in 10 years we can be at a point where you and I can cry in Salah because we know what Allah is saying. We can do that for the entire ummah. It's possible. All we need is people. And I hate to see enough people here. I do. These are the people that are going to bring the change. So I have a lot of hope in this country. Here's an email address that I'm going to give you.
This is checked by myself and my team, and I want to just collect you guys. I may not be able to answer all of you immediately, but I do want to collect so when time comes, and I do want to take this mission forward, I know who to reach out to, inshallah. It's Nouman at bayyina.com. If you don't know how to spell bayyina, make istighfar.
Thank you so very much for being patient with me this evening and listening through all of what I have to share with you. I am so honored to be here. I'm going to stick around here as long as possible until security kicks me out of here. I'd love to talk to as many of you can. Assalamu alaikum.